Hey there, my name is Przemek, and today I take a break from my top 50 favorite dark deep ambient albums list, and I got a regular review for you. The review of this album, Shinkiro, The Bird of the Gods. Last year we got two Shinkiro albums in a relatively short period of time. Well, not even relatively, because the release of both was like 2 months apart. I reviewed Stalactos, the first of these albums. It was released by Subcontinental Records from India. I reviewed it a couple of months ago, and in that video I expressed my doubts about the point of releasing one album after another so quickly. Although I suspect it's just a coincidence that it just happened that way. However, I listened to the second album, The Birth of the Gods, just now, when the emotions after Stalactos had kind of evaporated, and I think I can evaluate this one with a clean slate. The Birth of the Gods, released by Cyclic Law, and although the cooperation of these two brands always seemed natural to me, it is actually Shinkiro's first album under the banner of Cyclic Law, and it's not a direct continuation of Stalactos, because the compositions on Stalactos were made between 2016 and 2022, and those on The Birth of the Gods were created by Manabu Iramoto in between 2020 and 2021. And the first thing that catches your eye is the title, The Birth of the Gods. Doesn't it remind you of something? Of course, the second album by Shinkiro was titled Way of the Gods. It's an absolutely great material from 2008, released on Athanor Records. But The Birth of the Gods, what the label says about the album. Based on Japanese mythology sourced from Shinto and Buddhism, The Birth of the Gods has at its core nature worship, that the gods exist in all of nature, composed from deep drones, organic ethereal ambience layered with melodic guitar, piano and field recordings. Track express the unique characters of nature entities. These 7 compositions tap into and reveal some of Japan's most ancient mysteries. This is the design, the cover, and the inside. Not very fancy, but aesthetic enough, at least for my taste. Apart from the titles, do The Birth of the Gods and Way of the Gods have anything in common musically? Maybe the fact that you can see Shinkiro's progress over the years. Way of the Gods, a beautiful, very important album to me, but in retrospect, I think it's quite direct, I would say, in creating the atmosphere. It was also definitely darker and more ritual oriented. And with The Birth of the Gods, I have the impression that Manabu Iramoto is moving more and more away from the typically understood dark ambient, and this was also noticeable on Stalactos. Although, of course, after so many years in the genre, it is difficult to get rid of these dark influences for good, and I don't think that was the musician's intention. But these echoes of the past resound somewhere in the distance, whether in the spacious, windy sound or in some synth melodies, dark synth melodies. On the other hand, the ritual element is basically absent on this album. and when rhythmic fragments appear, they sound more illustrative or cinematic rather than well ritualistic. Like for example, the track number 2, Fire, very cinematic in my opinion, at some level echoing with the atmosphere of well, Blade Runner 2049 soundtrack by Hans Zimmer, but it's maybe just my impression. And the spirit of Buddhism or Shintoism is present here more in the idea than in the sounds themselves, I think, on the contrary to Way of the Gods, where this religious aura was very noticeable in the sounds, in the music, in its core, you know. By the way, on my top 50 favorite dark deep ambient albums list, this second Shinkiro album, Way of the Gods, is on the 42nd place, and I invite you to watch these videos. Next episode will be posted sometime next week. Birth of the Gods, it's like the clash of elements. It's like observing the powers beyond our comprehension, yet I feel they don't have any intention of destroying us unless we force them to do so. These are the powers we observe with admiration rather than with fear. You know, wind, fire, water. You hear all this here. Somehow Manabu managed to forge the nature of elements into sound, and not even by straightforward field recordings, but in those synth passages, melodies and sound textures. There's a lot of epic moments, you know, majestic passages, but not, you know, in a kitschy way. Sometimes it reminds me of classic electronics in the vein of Klaus Schulze. As also, I would say this album is quite pleasant and easy to listen, not very hermetic. I mean, even if you are not a fan of ambient or dark ambient, you can easily give it a try. You don't have to focus on the music throughout all these 7 tracks, but treat it as a soundtrack to whatever you do at the moment. Non-invasive, but not shallow, deep, but not overwhelming. And if you decide to listen to it, you know, carefully, focusing all your attention on the music, I don't think you'll get bored or weary. You know, first, this album is not very long. I think it's less than 40 minutes. Second, it's not, how to say it, narrow. You'll encounter a lot of cool sounds and soundscapes along this sonic journey. You notice layers under layers. Like, I think the example from my experience with this album, I think it was on the 3rd listening, I noticed that there's actually a male voice interwoven in the music in the last track, Fire. So I think there's still a lot of surprises for me to discover with another listens of The Birth of the Gods. This is by no means any kind of isolationist ambient, you know, for the hardcore fans of the genre, but it's a fine piece of music that should really get more attention. Shinkiro, The Birth of the Gods, my recommendation. Okay, thanks for watching and see you soon.